Okay, so good morning and welcome to our very first class for science. So, one thing that is very unique about attending science classes is that we conduct what we call as laboratory experiments. Now, in science, laboratory experiments are very important because our scientists learned many things of what we know today based on their different experiments that they did during their time. So, as a student attending a science class, you are all considered as scientists. And scientists, like we said, learn more about the world that we live in and understand the things that happen around us in our environment based on their observations from laboratory experiments. So during the duration of the school year, you will be doing several laboratory experiments. And unfortunately, although you will not be able to do these experiments in an actual lab, the experiments that I have assigned to your class are actually simple enough that you can do it at home. So for this school year, we will be having these laboratory experiments at home. And even if you are doing them at home and not in an actual laboratory, you still have to follow what we call as the safety rules when using and doing experiments inside a laboratory. Now, these safety rules are to keep you safe. Generally, it is there to prevent accidents from happening. Now, you have to remember that these are precautionary measures. So, these will prevent accidents from happening. And everyone inside the laboratory or anyone doing laboratory experiments must follow these rules. Okay, so let's start with the first laboratory safety rule. Okay, so the first one is this. Wait, let me just move this one. Okay, and then let me minimize this so that you can see what is on the actual slide. Okay, that's better. So the first one, as it says here, is that you only use the laboratory when directed by a teacher. So although you are interested or you have an idea of an experiment that you wanted to do, please do not do it without the approval or the supervision of your teacher. Now, for the school year, since you will be doing the laboratory experiments at home, only do these experiments when you are supervised by an adult. Do not do it alone or by yourself because this will prevent accidents from happening, especially if you will be using fire or heating some materials as part of the experiment. Please don't do them alone or by yourself. Always do it when you are with a teacher, when it is approved by the teacher, and when you are supervised by an adult. Okay? So, next, number two, you have to behave responsibly in the laboratory. So, you are scientists, and when you are doing experiments, you are doing it for a reason that is to learn or to understand a concept or a process better. So we are not playing inside the laboratory. So of course, when you are doing experiments, you have to behave responsibly. You have to behave as a scientist. And that means that you do not play inside the laboratory. You do not horse play or you do not um, um, do anything that can cause the glassware to break or the chemicals to spill. So you have to behave responsibly. So when we say behave responsibly, it means no playing around and just doing what is required of the laboratory experiment. Next, never work with chemicals without checking the labels carefully and only when directed by the teacher. So some chemicals are acidic in nature. And when we say acidic, it means that when you touch them without using the proper equipment, it can be harmful to your skin or it can cause harm to you. At the same time, some chemicals are very flammable. So just very small amount of heat, it can explode and it can cause fire. So you have to understand what kind of chemical are you dealing with. So if you are using acidic chemicals or acid, you have to wear the proper equipment. You have to wear acid resistant gloves, not just any kind of gloves. And you also have to wear your safety goggles. And it's better if you are wearing your laboratory gown. So knowing what kind of chemicals you're dealing with helps you prepare not just what you are wearing, but how you are going to act with it. And then if it's flammable, of course, you have to place it away from any source of fire. For example, one group is heating water. You do not open that flammable chemical near the group that is using fire. So you have to know what kind of chemicals you are dealing with. And of course, you only use chemicals as directed by the teacher. So if the teacher says you have to use hydrogen peroxide, so you only use hydrogen peroxide and not any other chemicals that is available in the laboratory. For this school year, you will be using chemicals that are available within your home. So basically, these are chemicals that you can find in your kitchen. Now, even if they are regular chemicals that you can find in the kitchen, you still have to be careful when it comes to handling them. And you only use it because it is directed by the teacher or is necessary for the laboratory experiment. Next, number 4, have the teacher place broken glass and disposables in appropriate designated containers. So there are specific trash cans or designated containers in the laboratory. There is, if it is a chemical, it should be disposed in a specific container that is labeled as infectious or chemical container. If it is a broken glass, it should be placed in a specific container. So it's not just one container and then everything goes into it. So in case that there is an accident that happens, and it really happens, every year we have accidents where glasswares are broken, accidented in accidents, so it's not intentional. So it's okay if you broke a glassware. You just have to tell the teacher so that the teacher can assist you in clean up and where it should be placed after the clean up. So usually for younger students, the one responsible for the cleanup should be the teacher. But for adults, for example, grade 11 or grade 12 students, the cleanup can be done by the students, but it should be um, supervised by the teacher, okay? Or it should be done in collaboration or together with the teacher. Okay, so do not place all kinds of trash, broken glasses or paper trash, and then use chemicals all in just one container. You have to place them in designated containers. And then number 5, report accidents. Now, accidents, these are not intentional, and although the first reaction or the common reaction is for you to be afraid because you did something wrong or you broke a glassware, please do not hide it. You have to report it to your teacher. So reporting it to your teacher can prevent another or further accidents from happening. So for example, you broke a beaker and you were afraid that the teacher will scold you for breaking a beaker. You put it inside your bag. So it can cause other accidents to happen. So just tell the teacher that it was an accident, it was not intentional, but you broke a beaker, and then the teacher will help in the cleanup of the broken glassware. So these accidents, they happen. you have to inform us, because if not, another or further accidents can happen because of it. Number 6, report any unsafe situation to the teacher. So sometimes there will be some signs that you think accidents can happen. For example, something smells like burning, and it's not a normal smell that should be inside the laboratory. When you enter the laboratory, it should not smell like it's burning. So you have to tell the teacher, teacher, I think something is burning, so that the teacher can check if the laboratory is safe for you to use. So they have to check if there is something that's plugged in. For example, an equipment was plugged in and there was some electrical malfunction that caused some burning smell. Or for example, someone was heating something and there was too much heat, so they have to lower down the heat or completely close the fire. So any unsafe situation, you have to tell the teacher. Another example, in the chemistry laboratory, we have sources of gas, LPG, because we use fire in some kinds of experiments. And when you enter the laboratory, it smells like some gas was leaking. So you have to tell the teacher so that the teacher can check if one of the gas tanks was left unopened, so that it can be closed, and then we have to evacuate the place and wait for the smell or the leak of the gas to dissipate. Okay, so you have to tell and help the teacher if the laboratory or the situation is safe for you to do experiments. Next, so it says here, never taste substances without teacher direction. No eating, drinking, gum chewing, applying makeup in the laboratory. So let's start with the first one, which is tasting substances. Tasting substances is allowed, but not everything can be tasted. Some chemicals can be tasted, but not all. For example, sodium chloride. Sodium chloride is your regular salt, table salt. So that can be tasted. It is a chemical, but it can be tasted. But not all can be tasted. So you only taste substances that is included in the laboratory. So if it is directed by the teacher, then you do it. And the proper way to taste chemicals in the laboratory is that you place a small amount in your tongue, but you do not swallow it. You have to spit it out. So once you taste it, you spit it out. Okay? And then the second one is one of the most important. No eating, drinking, gum chewing, and applying makeup in the laboratory. Why? Because there are chemicals in the laboratory. If you eat or drink, you do not know if the food that you're eating or the drink that you're drinking is contaminated with some of the chemicals inside the laboratory. And if you drink and eat contaminated food, then you are ingesting chemicals that may be bad for your body. So generally, eating and drinking is not allowed inside the laboratory. The same when it comes to applying makeup. There are chemicals in the lab, and you don't know if these chemicals are in the air or in the table. You don't know how clean the table is, or is it enough? The cleaning done was enough to remove all of the chemicals there. And then you're going to apply makeup. So you're basically putting chemicals in your face, in your hands, that can cause chemical reactions or skin irritation. So inside the laboratory, you only do the experiment, but you do not eat, you do not drink, or you do not apply makeup if you're inside the lab. And this one applies to girls. Long hair, it should be tied. It should be placed away from your face. So you use a hairband or a hair clip to restrict your hair from going inside in front of your face. The reason why is because sometimes you are handling fire, and when it's loose and it's not contained, your hair can caught fire, or it can be drip. You can put chemicals in your hair, which can cause it to burn or cause some chemical reactions on it. So basically, inside the laboratory, the hair must be tied at the back. And then loose clothing is actually not allowed. The same, your loose clothing, it can get caught on glassware, which will cause it to fall. Or sometimes you're handling fire and then your loose clothing can caught fire, or it can get on an acid and then the acid will go to your skin. So loose clothing is not allowed. The same that while inside the laboratory, you have to use closed shoes. So using slippers and open toe sandals are not allowed. Why? Because some chemicals can get spilled and it can go to your open feet. So you have to be using the proper clothing while inside the laboratory. Next, you have to wash your hands before, during, and after doing an experiment. But most importantly, before leaving the laboratory. It's very common for us to use our hands to put it on your face and to rub it in your eyes if your eyes are a bit itchy. So to be safe, you have to wash your hands to make sure that there are no chemicals left over in your hands from doing experiments, so that when you touch your face, when you touch your body, you are not putting chemicals on your skin and it will prevent skin irritations from happening. So in the picture here, someone rubbed their eyes, but unfortunately, there are leftover chemicals on their fingers, so it can cause damage to their eyes. So if you can see here, the eyes are red because it's reacting with the leftover chemicals. And especially now in this kind of new normal that we're having, washing hands frequently is actually advisable, not just to prevent chemicals from spreading to your skin, but also to prevent the virus from going or spreading out into your body. Next, keep paper and other flammable objects away from sources of heat. So, like we said, it's very common for a scientist to use fire to heat different kinds of substances to check if there will be a reaction or not. So to prevent fire from happening, we have to keep paper away from the sources of heat. When you visit the laboratory, you can see that actually there are no papers inside the laboratory, which is to prevent this from happening, from fire from happening, because we have sources of heat inside the laboratory. And then, of course, we have to follow proper techniques. So when we give laboratory experiments, we give you a set of procedures. And these procedures are chronologically arranged. So you have to follow these procedures step by step. So in the first procedure, if it says label, you have to label it. Please do not skip reading the procedures because it's very important and can really prevent accidents from happening. For example, the procedure says you have to slowly add acid to water, but you did not read the procedure properly. So what you did is you got a beaker of acid and then another beaker of water, and then you just pour the acid into the water. You dumped it like that. So it can explode because the instruction says slowly. Slowly because the water has to um, dilute the acid that's being added to it. So when you add acid on water, you can see the water bubbling, and that is slowly. So if you just dump the acid on the water, it can explode. Or what's worse is you added the water to the acid, which is not allowed. When handling acid and water, you should always pour the acid to the water, not the water to the acid. So the importance of reading and following the procedures can prevent accidents from happening. If you dump acid on water, regardless if it's slowly, it will explode and it can cause the beaker to explode, the broken glass to be to explode in your face. So it can cause irreparable damage. So you always follow the proper technique. Next, work only with the materials and equipment that you have been directed to use. So the materials and the equipment are included in the procedure. It's always given by the teacher. So only use that which is directed, not use other materials. Okay. And then next, do not harm live animals. As scientists, our purpose is always for the improvement of living organisms or all kinds of living things. So not just humans, but including plants and animals. So even though we are using animals inside the laboratory to learn more about things, we do not cause them harm. We try to, you know, do experiments with them as humanely as possible. So you only use organisms if necessary and if directed by the teacher. But if you just want to pour acid on an animal or an insect, please do not do that. As scientists, our purpose is always for the betterment of living organisms. So scientists do not harm animals and plants. Okay? And next, you use the safety equipment only in an emergency. So some of you may be confused, why do you see a shower inside a science laboratory? That is because a shower is considered as a safety equipment. You use it, for example, if you spilled a lot of chemical in your body. So when you spill chemical in your body, in your eyes, in your hands, in your arms, you have to flush it out with water. And sometimes the sink is too small. If the area in your body that was exposed to the chemical or to the acid is big, you have to use the shower. So the shower is there not because the teacher wants to take a bath, but because it's a safety equipment. So you flush it out, the acid, you flush it out with enough water, and then after that, you go to a clinic or a hospital so that they can treat the burn. But before that, the first aid when it comes to chemical spills is always to flush it out with lots and lots of water. So we only use it, the shower, and then only if there is an emergency. We do not play with the shower. We do not open it just to see if there's water in the shower or if it's working properly. We do not play with it. It is a safety equipment. Therefore, we use it only when it's necessary. Next, of course, in case of fire, and this rule does not just apply when it comes to science classes, it applies to all kinds of situations. In case of fire, you have to know the fire exit. So you have to know where to go. You do not panic. You do not run. You do not jump from the second floor or the third floor. You walk calmly towards the exit. Okay. So you have to identify where are the exit areas inside the laboratory and where do you go to the safety area. And of course, if you are on fire, you can use the shower to put out the fire or the fire blanket that is available in the laboratory. In case of fire, there are also fire extinguishers inside the laboratory. Different kinds of fire extinguishers depending on the kind of fire that's produced. So if the fire is produced by a chemical, you have to use the green fire extinguisher. If it's used by a regular source of heat, for example, an alcohol lamp or a Bunsen burner, you have to use the red fire extinguisher. And both of them are available inside the laboratory. Again, like we said, we discourage open-toe shoes or sandals or slippers inside the laboratory. And the reason is because some chemical spillage can splash to your feet. So in case this thing happens, if you can see there are burns on the feet because most probably it's an acid, you have to wash it thoroughly in the shower, not on the sink. You do not put your foot on the sink. You use the shower, then after that you go to the clinic or in a hospital. Okay, so in case this happens, of course, you have to inform the teacher so that the teacher can assist you in the shower or can call, inform the admin to bring you to the hospital or to the clinic. Protective personal protective equipment such as this is your laboratory goggles, is very important. So whenever you are heating something or handling chemicals, you protect your eyes, not just from exploding glasswares, but from chemicals that can go to your eyes and damage them. You protect them by using your safety goggles. Now, the rest of your body can be protected by using your laboratory gown. So you always wear your lab gowns when you are inside the laboratory. And then the materials must stay in the laboratory area. You cannot bring them out. You wash them, you use them, you clean them inside the laboratory. You do not bring them anywhere else. And then, of course, during fire drills, one of the things that we have to remember is to turn off any kind of electrical equipment that is plugged in, including the air cons. If there are Bunsen burners, we have to turn it off, including the LPG, we have to turn it off. Okay? And then we have to identify where are the areas where we can find the fire extinguisher, where we can find the fire blanket. If there is an eye wash, where can it be found? If there is a shower, where can you find the shower? So that in case of emergency, you know where to go. And if it seems like a bad idea, of course, don't do it. You only do what's directed. And if you have some ideas that you think you can do, don't do it unless it's approved by the teacher. Okay? In case of chemical spills, you have to inform the teacher. You do not just mop it out with any kind of cloth or rug. Some acids can burn through clothing. So we have to use a specific kind of acid-resistant gloves to handle this chemical spill. So you have to tell the teacher, and the teacher will assist you or do the cleanup for you. And like I said, it's very important. Always tell the teacher. Do not clean it by yourself. You do it with the teacher, or the teacher will do it for you. In case of broken glass, the same thing. Tell the teacher. Do not clean it by yourself. You will do it, clean it with the teacher, or the teacher will clean it for you. Always, always tell the teacher, regardless if it's a small spillage, if it's just a small broken glass, you always tell the teacher. Okay? So that is the end of our first lesson. So I hope that you can apply these safety laboratory rules whenever you are doing your experiments, regardless if it is just at home or if you are doing it inside the laboratory. So these safety rules, they prevent accidents from happening. Accidents happen, but it can be prevented. So we have to act accordingly whenever we are doing any kind of experiment. So we will continue with our next lesson next time. So bye.